I walked into my honeymoon thinking I found forever. But that beautiful island was the place he destroyed me. I just didn't know. I'd return with a revenge he never saw coming. The wedding was everything I ever dreamed of. Perfect, white, expensive. Alex, my husband, stood at the altar, looking like the leading man in a movie. Pause, slight breathlessness, the kind of man you trust, with your entire future. We met in Manhattan, through work. He was a rising star in finance, charming, driven, magnetic. I was an up-and-coming architect, practical, but hopelessly romantic. We were the power couple everyone envied. Everyone said we were meant to be. 2 weeks later, we were on a plane to Maui, our luxurious, 2-week honeymoon. The first 3 days were pure bliss. Sunsets, long dinners, the kind of moments you save forever, in a little velvet box in your memory. But on the 4th day, things changed. It started with his phone whisper, always his phone. He would disappear for long periods. Not to swim or explore, but to take calls, in the dead of night, down on the deserted beach, where the waves sounded like secrets. I told myself, it's work. Big finance deals don't stop, just because you're in paradise. But the calls felt different. Secretive. His voice was low, tense. And when he returned, he'd look at me, with this strange, distant glaze in his eyes, like he was calculating something. I wasn't allowed to know. One evening, we were having dinner, overlooking the ocean. I reached across the table, to hold his hand. Isabella, Alex, everything okay? You seem miles away. He squeezed my hand back, but it felt cold. Perfunctory. Alexander, of course, Izzy. Just, one of the analysts back home messed up a huge portfolio transfer. Stressful, that's all. I have to manage it. He smiled, but his eyes didn't reach mine. It was a mask. I was just starting to recognize. The red flags were piling up, like stones in my stomach. The way he guarded his briefcase, a locked aluminum case he insisted on bringing, everywhere, even to the poolside. The way he deleted his messages, right after reading them. Then, the biggest one. We were back in the villa. I went to grab a book off the nightstand, and saw a small, cheap-looking business card, tucked inside the pages. It wasn't his company's. It was from a tiny, independent law firm, based in Boca Raton, Florida. I slid it out, my heart hammering against my ribs, like a trapped bird. The card had a handwritten note, on the back. Just 3 words, in messy handwriting. Call me. It's done. It's done. What was done? What did a law firm in Florida have to do with my New York finance husband and his stressful analyst? That night, I couldn't sleep. The truth was bubbling up, dark and oily, in my gut. I knew. I couldn't confront him yet. I needed proof. I needed to understand the scale of the rot. I waited until 3 a.m., when his breathing was deep and even. I slipped out of bed, and went straight for the briefcase, the one he guarded like a treasure chest. It was locked, with a numerical code. I stood there, staring at the numbers. What would Alex use? Our anniversary? Our birthdays? No, too sentimental. I looked at the business card again. Boca Raton. Finance. Betrayal. I suddenly remembered a major acquisition he'd been handling, months ago, the one that made his career. A company called Boca Tech. I typed in the date of the acquisition, April 22, 2023. Whisper. It clicked open. Inside the briefcase, there were no spreadsheets, no market reports. There was a stack of legal documents. And a thick, red folder labeled Vance Trust. I sat down on the floor, the cool marble, a stark contrast to the fire of panic racing through my veins. The documents were detailed, complex, and utterly devastating. They weren't about a stock transfer or an analyst error. They were about us. The first document was a prenuptial agreement. Slow, painful pause, one I had never seen. The one I did sign was a standard, 2-page document that protected the wealth we built together. This document was signed by Alex 3 days before our wedding and stated that, in the event of separation, I would receive a single, lump sum payment of $50,000. But that wasn't the betrayal. The second document was worse. It was an amendment to the Vance Trust. Alex's family trust, a massive fortune I knew nothing about until we met. The amendment stated that if Alex married someone who knowingly initiated divorce proceedings, within 3 years, he would be cut off entirely. But if the spouse initiated, due to documented infidelity or proven malicious intent, his inheritance would double. He didn't just cheat on me, on our honeymoon. He married me, to use me. He needed me, to be the one to file for divorce, based on his behavior, so he could get a bigger share of his family's money. He was planning to hurt me so badly. I'd have no choice but to leave. The phone calls, the secrecy, it was all groundwork, setting up the performance for our split. I looked down at the last document. A letter to the Florida law firm. A final instruction, dated the day before we left for Maui. Gasp. The letter outlined the final act. Alex was planning to introduce me to a woman at the resort, a hired accomplice who would confess to a fake affair, providing me with the proof needed to file immediately. He wasn't cheating. He was staging a cheating scandal, using our honeymoon as his set. The emotional breakdown didn't happen right away. It was a cold, quiet shock. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just calculated. The romantic, loving husband was a ruthless, financial opportunist. And I was the unwilling key to his entire future. I carefully replaced everything, locked the briefcase, and slipped back into bed. I watched him sleep, his face peaceful, oblivious to the monster I had just uncovered. He wanted evidence of infidelity. A dark, determined whisper, "I'll give him evidence of my revenge." The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. I was sweeter, more attentive. I even suggested a romantic excursion, a scuba dive to a hidden reef. Alex loved the idea. "Isabella, let's just forget about work today, honey. Let's make the rest of this honeymoon unforgettable." He smiled, a real smile this time, because he thought his plan was moving forward. But I had already made my call. Not to a lawyer, but to a trusted friend, a specialist in corporate forensic analysis back in New York. "Isabella, I need you to look into the Vance Trust and every single asset Alex has. Specifically, anything related to Boca. I need it all, by the time I land." For the next 4 days, I played the part. I was the doting wife, loving, oblivious. But beneath the surface, I was building a fortress of evidence, and sharpening my knife. When we landed back in New York, I was a different woman. Alex was already making excuses for a business trip next week. He was going to set up his fake affair scenario. But my plan was already in motion. My friend, Mark, had delivered. He didn't just find the trust documents. He found a deeper, darker secret Alex had buried within the Boca acquisition. Alex had engaged in insider trading, leveraging the trust's funds and his position, using a complex shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. It was a scandal that wouldn't just cut him off from the trust, it would land him in federal prison. I waited for the perfect moment. It was a Friday night, the annual Vance Family Gala, a huge, black-tie event, where Alex was supposed to be publicly celebrated as the heir apparent. I wore the most beautiful dress I had ever owned. I was radiant. Alex was beaming, introducing me proudly as his loving wife. The room was silent, as Alex's father prepared to make a toast. But before he could lift his glass, I stepped forward, tapping the microphone. Isabella, before we toast, to Alex Vance. I think there's one last contract we should all review. Alex's face went white. He knew. I was holding the knife. I projected a massive PDF onto the giant screen behind the stage. It wasn't the fake prenup. It was a certified copy of the federal investigation request. I had filed that afternoon, detailing his insider trading and the Cayman Shell Company. The documents detailed everything. The dates, the transfers, the illegal profits. The betrayal wasn't about sex, it was about money. He saw our marriage as a transactional step to get more of it. He tried to frame me, to secure his inheritance. But in trying to destroy my life, he left a trail that led to the destruction of his own. Alex screamed my name, his perfect mask dissolving into pure, panicked rage. Isabella, you wanted documented proof of malicious intent, Alex? Here it is. It was never about a divorce. It was always about justice. And my revenge is you having nothing left to betray. Security swarmed the stage. Alex was escorted out, not by his family, but by two men in dark suits, waiting patiently in the back. His inheritance vanished. His freedom was gone. His reputation erased. I watched the downfall from the doorway, then walked out into the cool New York air. I took off my diamond ring and dropped it into a sewer grate, the last remnant of the beautiful lie. I went on that honeymoon looking for love. I came home, finding betrayal. But the biggest lesson I learned is that emotional pain is the most powerful fuel for sweet, quiet revenge. I didn't just walk away from a bad marriage. I walked away with the truth. What would you have done if you found out your entire marriage was a calculated lie? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories of justice and shocking revenge.